We flew from Cape Town to Istanbul, and from there it was an hour and a quarter hour's flight to Bucharest. Coming into land, there was plenty of water all around. But it was the patchwork greenery which caught our eyes. The airport is fairly small and is situated about 16 kilometers from the city centre. A popular form of transport in Romania is cycling. These bikes are for hire and need not be returned to the original pickup point. The concert hall is one of the city's landmarks and was opened in 1888. The overall style is neoclassical, with some intricate mosaics and decorations which add to the overall beauty. King Carol I of Romania stands on horseback in front of the Central University Library building. Statues appear on almost every street corner. Bucharest has a number of pedestrian zones, all with a number of restaurants and shopping facilities. The city is situated on the banks of the Dâmbovița River, which flows into the Argus River, a tributary of the Danube. One of the most controversial statues in Romania is of the Emperor Trajan. It sparks mockery, with a pit bull head, a lizard's tail, and a tumour on its neck. Opposite the National Museum is the CEC Palace, which now serves as the headquarters of the CEC Bank, with its reflection on the left. The Radu Voda Monastery was founded by the great-grandchild of Dracula, Prince Alexander II and Lady Catherine, in 1568 to 1577. The contrasting buildings of the old and the new blend together. Artwork is to be found everywhere, even in the foyer of our hotel. The National Academy of Defence was built to train military experts in the security and national defence. The Academy was one of the few places in Bucharest which saw live action during the relatively peaceful handover of power to King Mihai in August 1944. Parking is a problem in Bucharest. Cars are even parked on the island in the middle of an intersection. The Palace of the Parliament is the largest administrative building in the world, with a height of 84 meters, an area of 365,000 square meters, and houses the Senate and the Chamber of Deputies. Fountains are often seen on the islands on many roadways in Bucharest, some fairly delicate and others forming cascading terraces. It is interesting to note that most shops are open until 10 p.m., way past some people's bedtime. A typical landmark in most capital cities is the Intercontinental Hotel. The architecture of some of the buildings is classic European style, while others have become modern skyscrapers. The monument to the heroes of the air is more commonly known as the Statue of the Aviators. We found Bucharest to be very clean, and the islands often had colourful flower beds. The current Arc de Triomphe was inaugurated in 1936. The first wooden arch was built hurriedly after Romania gained its independence in 1878, so that the victorious troops could march under it. The Stavropolius Monastery is situated at the end of a pedestrian mall. Once inside, a new world opens. Religious frescoes on the side chapel and on the ceiling were dedicated to Archangels Michael and Gabriel. These are painted in Romanian Renaissance style of the late 17th century. Back on the pavement, artwork continues with the iron casting of the manhole cover. Looking up, an intricate copper-covered roof can be seen. A bit further on, a blank wall has been beautifully decorated. I'm sure that everyone has heard of Dracula or Vlad Tepes. He plundered villages, taking the captured people to Wallachia, an area near to Lower Danube, where he had them impaled. In February 1462, he attacked Ottoman territory, massacring tens of thousands of Turks and Bulgarians. Vlad himself was murdered around 1477. It was time for lunch, so we left the Dracula fortress, passing some elegant buildings with statues of important figures. Soup is a typical lunchtime meal in Romania. We were always happy with the local meal as well as the price. Reflections of buildings in vehicles is an interesting photographic topic and creates modern art with a difference. The lamppost in front of the CEC building is beautiful in its design. All historical buildings in the capital display a plaque giving some background information, in this case the Church of St. Nicholas. We overnighted in the Radisson Blu. An interesting viewpoint was of the reception area from above. The next day we went on an excursion visiting Mogosoia Palace, which, as the plaque at the entrance said, was a gift by Constantine to his son in 1702. It was built during 1698 to 1702 by Constantine Brâncoveanu in Romanian Renaissance style. The palace bears the name of Mogus, the widow of the Romanian boyar, who owned the land that it was built on. Constantine was executed with his entire family in Constantinople in 1714. All the family's wealth was confiscated by the Ottomans, and the palace was converted into an inn. Today, it is a popular tourist destination and houses a very interesting museum and art gallery. The Romanian rulers during the late 1700s were chosen from the rich Greek inhabitants of Constantinople, and the fashion and custom followed Greek-Turkish model. This museum houses many of the items that were found in the well-to-do houses of the time. Our next stop was Snagov Island, about 40 kilometers north of the capital. Snagov Island is tiny and home to a monastery and Flood Tebas, Count Dracula's alleged final resting place. The island is connected to the mainland by a bridge with views of the mainland and the yacht club. Once on the island, a pathway leads to a small stone church which dates from the 15th century. The monastery is one of the oldest monastic settlements in the vicinity of Bucharest. The frescoes have been partially restored and are now an important tourist attraction. They make up the largest mural collection preserved in a church in the whole of Romania. The grounds around the monastery display an old cart used as a flower box. The surroundings are also home to some strange-looking long-haired ponies. It is time to head back to Bucharest along quiet country roads. Once we reach the capital, the scenery changes with public transport sharing the road with the local population. Our last views of the city are of the original communist housing units as we headed for Gheorghe on the Danube, about 68 kilometers away. The River Beatrice is our new home on the river. The ship is 126 meters long, but only 11 meters wide. Excitement mounts as we experience our first river cruise. The cabins are roomy and very comfortable. All accommodation has en-suite bathrooms. The bar area is large and free drinks are available throughout the day and into the late evening. To get to the dining room, one passes a comfortable lounge area. Large windows allowed a continuous view of the passing countryside. Coffee breaks were a draw in the quiet and peaceful reading area. There is a small library with games, puzzles, and internet facilities. The sun deck was very popular for viewing, as well as doing circuits of 126 meters. And so we leave the mainland on our first stage of the cruise. Bulgaria is called the Land of Roses, and our first stop is in Rusa. We boarded a motor coach heading north to the city of the Tsars, Veliko Turnovo. The roads are narrow, there was virtually no traffic, and the housing was very basic and in need of maintenance. We stopped for lunch overlooking a stronghold where Bulgaria's kings ruled between 1185 and 1393. The remains of the great stone walls formed the historic heart of the Second Bulgarian Empire. Our next stop was to visit a monastery to listen to the Angelic Voices Quartet performing Eastern Orthodox Bulgarian chant. Wherever tourists are to be found, there will be items and relics on display and for sale. The Nativity Church was close by, and we sat in pews listening to the history of the church. There are more than 2,000 frescoes depicting scenes of the apostles, martyrs, and saints. These were created as a Bible for the illiterate. The Constant Saliva House, originally built in the 17th century, has been beautifully restored. It reflects not only the wealth of the owners, but also the attention to detail and the quality craftsmanship of that time. The winter rooms were heated by large built-in stoves, as we see here. There's a large souvenir shop on the ground floor where the storage room and living quarters for the servants would have been. It was raining when we went to lunch in a typical Bulgarian restaurant with a unique display of folk dancing. The rain continued as we headed back to the River Beatrice. Rainwater flowing down the windows of the coach added an artistic touch to the empty street scenes. It was going on for 8 p.m. when we were once again settled in our cabin. We had sailed during the night, so we're quite near to the Serbian border. Huge barges often accompanied us on our way. As we got close to Vidin, our last stop in Bulgaria, activities along the water's edge intensified. Just before landing at Vidin, we were treated to clouds, a row of trees, and a magnificent reflection. We have arrived at the port and have to actually walk across a ship moored on the quayside. Vidin in northwestern Bulgaria is close to the borders of Romania and Serbia and has a fertile hinterland renowned for its wines. The area is famous for its rock formations, which developed during the Permian period about 230 million years ago, when the tectonic cycle was folding to create the Balkan Mountains and elevating the region. A steep path leads to the top between the strange shaped sandstone and limestone wonders of nature. We head higher and eventually reached the summit with its panoramic views. The trip down showed the fortifications built by the Romans and later used by Bulgarians and the Ottomans. On our way back to our ship, we stopped to photograph various scenes such as this interesting chapel. Pausing to capture a white stork nesting on a rooftop is a special sighting. A memorial for the victims of communism was our final sight before embarking on the River Beatrice again. There is always some activity on board. Before sailing from Verdun, a group of young dancers in national costume entertained us. The next morning we left Bulgaria with its national flag still fluttering. The Danube flows through 10 countries, more than any other river in the world. It runs southeast for 2,860 kilometers before emptying into the Black Sea. In 2013, a new 2-kilometer bridge was built linking Bulgaria to Romania. This rail and highway passage, christened New Europe Bridge, facilitated tourism from Italy as well as exports from Greece. In the 4th century, a Roman bridge built here collapsed. From then on, until the bridge was built in 1954, there was no crossing. Leaving Verdun, we cross into Serbia and continue upstream through 4 narrow gorges called the Iron Gates. Small holiday resorts line the river's edge, and where there are houses, a church is bound to be seen close by. Our last view before going through a huge lock is of a fisherman hoping for a catch. In the 1960s, the government built an enormous lock, a dam, and a power station to help control the speed of the river. This would make navigating the narrow section of the Danube River much safer. Our ship only just squeezes into the lock with only a few millimeters to spare on either side. The lock slowly closes. Our ship starts rising. All in all, we have climbed a total of 39 meters to get through the lock. Prior to the 1960s, commercial riverboats transporting goods up and down the river dreaded having to navigate the rapids of the narrow section of the river. Today, the river flowing through the Iron Gates is peaceful, and as I mentioned earlier, it is 39 meters higher than before the lock, dam, and power station were erected on the Danube River. Daytime sailing is a must in order to enjoy spectacular scenery through 4 narrow gorges referred to as the Iron Gates. Some of the residents along the river have developed flourishing farmlands, and suddenly the limestone walls of the Iron Gates come into view. The walls rise to almost 500 meters, while the river bottom descends more than 150 meters. Every now and then some form of life could be seen, such as this tiny church. We paused for a few minutes to admire the impressive rock carving of the face of the last king of what is now Romania. The 42.9 meter high and 31.6 meter wide carving took 12 sculptors 10 years to complete. The first 6 years involved dynamiting the rock into the basic shape, and the remaining 4 years were devoted to completing the detail. The Iron Gates, a series of gorges, encompasses a route of 134 kilometers. We often passed other pleasure craft, exploring and enjoying the area. The gorge lies between Romania in the north and Serbia in the south. With plenty of water available, we came across more farmlands and a beach holiday resort. Our first docking station in Serbia was a small town called Donji Milanovac. It is a peaceful holiday resort with a permanent market selling articles to tourists. The town is sparsely inhabited with a population of around 2,500. A small park along the water's edge revealed an elephant with huge tusks. The park also displayed a beautiful bed of roses as part of a pedestrian walkway along the water's edge. Our ship, the River Beatrice, was moored a short way away, and it was time to board and slowly glide northwards. We continue sailing through the Iron Gates with Serbia on our left and past Danube National Park. Over 23,000 citizens who were living along the river had to be resettled in order to construct the lock and the 2 dams. The Romanian side of the gorge is part of the Iron Gates National Park and embraces an area of about 1,850 square kilometers. It is the biggest of the 3 national parks in Romania. Holiday homes line the beachfront and look as though they have an attic upstairs. Farmlands always add a feeling of tranquility to a scene. The Golubac fortress is thought to have been built during the 14th century. It is a popular tourist attraction on the Serbian side of the Danube. As we approach Belgrade, we pass small villages reflected in the late evening light. Our first views of Belgrade the capital of Serbia, are of floating restaurants close to the quay where we will disembark. Uske Center is the largest modern shopping mall in Serbia with 130 shops. Belgrade is located on the confluence of the Sava and the Danube rivers. The National Museum, which was established in 1844, houses over 400,000 objects of Balkan heritage. The Royal Palace was built between 1924 and 1929 and is home to Crown Prince Alexander, Crown Princess Catherine, and Alexander's 3 sons from his first marriage. Tours of the palace can only be done in the company of a professional guide, and the royalty open their private residence every weekend from April through to October. Magnificent original tapestries and oil paintings can be seen as part of a 2-hour tour. The palace also has an oriental salon with a number of rooms decorated in the style of the Terem Palace of Tsar Alexis of Russia in the Moscow Kremlin. Adjoining the palace, a passage leads to the royal chapel, which is dedicated to St. Andrew, the patron saint of the royal family. We leave the chapel and the palace and set off to view the Belgrade fortress. Belgrade is clean and we pass a number of cascading fountains. One of the famous landmarks is the Moskva Hotel, inaugurated by King Peter I in 1908. Hungary? At the entrance to the fortress, you can buy 1 kilogram of sausage and a litre of draft beer for about 200 rand. The fortress stands on top of a cliff overlooking the confluence of the Sava and the Danube rivers. A military museum also forms part of the exhibit. A large garden with magnificent trees takes up a good part of the pathways and provides an opportunity to relax. On our way out, an old Buick greeted us, obviously decorated as a bridal vehicle. Instead of taking the local transport, we did a self-guided walking tour, admiring some of the buildings along the way. Mosaics outside the St. Michael's Orthodox Cathedral are still in pristine condition and are about 170 years old. Inside the cathedral, the artwork is incredible and spans an area from floor to ceiling. It is time to have lunch, so we proceeded towards the pedestrian walkway with high-rise office blocks and apartment buildings. It is a pity that the lack of maintenance has altered the character of this once elegant apartment block. Pavement cafes hosted visiting soccer fans from all over the world. The rest of the pedestrian precinct offered the normal activities of window shopping and a colourful clown making balloons for children. Imagine having to pay to have a python probing your neck. Many of the buildings displayed statues as well as intricate carvings. It seems a pity that some owners are not able to care for their buildings. Care and regular maintenance really makes such a difference. Nearly all of the office blocks, however, were in good condition. Some of the buildings had beautiful statues erected high on the roof, difficult to appreciate without a telephoto lens. Back on the ship, our evening's entertainment was by a local dance group in national costume. A final smile, and it was time to settle in for the night. It was a still, calm day as we cruised towards Croatia. We headed towards a town called Vukovar, located on the confluence of the Vuka River and the Danube. One of the other cruise ships had already docked as we got ready to berth. Vukovar is a small town with a population of around 27,000. The town fell on the 18th of November 1991 during the Croatian War of Independence. It was the first major European town to be entirely destroyed since the Second World War. During the 87-day battle, shells and rockets were fired into the town at a rate of up to 12,000 a day. Vukovar remained in Serb hands until 1998, when it was peacefully reintegrated into Croatia. Driving into the countryside, it is difficult to visualize that before the Croatian War of Independence, the Baroque town was a prosperous, mixed community of Croats, Serbs, and other ethnic groups. During the war, the town was ethnically cleansed of its non-Serb population and became part of the self-declared Republic of Serbian Krajina. Osijek is about 246 kilometers from Belgrade and is a popular tourist destination. The architecture is Baroque style, but unfortunately many buildings are in need of renovation. The tower of St. Peter and Paul Church is 90 meters high and can be seen from anywhere in Osijek. The church is a neo-Gothic structure and contains magnificent sculptures by Eduard Hauser. The church contains 40 stained glass windows, although they are not all intact after the bombing in the 1990s. Holy Trinity Square is the main square in Osijek and contains many important landmarks such as the Museum of Slovenia. It is time to head back to the coach, so we wander along the cobbled street. With unemployment at 37% and having joined the EU in 2013, many locals have left Croatia. We watched a demonstration of net fishing by a local farmer selling all sorts of souvenirs. Lunch was enjoyed with a private family who offer this service in order to supplement their income. The young man on the right acted as the interpreter for the hostess serving her home-cooked meal. The kitchen was modern and well designed. It was such an interesting experience to visit one of the locals to see how they lived. There were flowers in the garden, but what really impressed us was the large area set aside for growing vegetables. As we embarked, we thought of the ease with which we went from country to country. Customs and immigration waited as we arrived at each border and dealt with all formalities in no time. We leave Croatia and continue on the Danube, which flows through the middle of Hungary. Activities on board ship included either entertainment or interesting lectures. Here we learnt about the EU today, with its 28 countries and 23 languages. Rules for joining included 80,000 pages of laws and rules. No wonder the UK has decided on Brexit. Hoisting the Hungarian flag signifies that we have arrived in Budapest. It is the capital of Hungary and often nicknamed the Paris of the East. One of the many thermal bath complexes is Geler, which was completed in 1918 in the Art Nouveau style. It was damaged during World War II, but then rebuilt to its former glory. The west side of the Danube is called Buda, and the east bank Pest. The inner city parish church was founded in 1046. It has a Gothic Romanesque structure and a Baroque facade. We approach the magnificent Hungarian Parliament building. In the 1880s, an international competition was held to come up with a design for the building. Construction was started in 1885 and 100,000 workers were employed. It is sad to know that the architect Imre Steindl went blind before its completion. Gail and I had a choice of either a city tour or a conducted bike trip around the city. One of our first stops was the emotional shoe memorial to honor those killed in World War II. Prisoners were ordered to take off their shoes and were shot at the edge of the water so that their bodies fell into the river and were carried away. The memorial represents their shoes left behind on the bank. We cycled back towards our hotel and pass a manicured traffic circle before reaching St. Stephen's Basilica. It is the largest church in Budapest and is dedicated to Hungary's first king, St. Stephen. The architectural style is neoclassical and the facade is anchored by two large bell towers. Taking into account a collapse of the dome during construction and the entire rebuilding of the church, it took 54 years to complete. The basilica houses Hungary's most sacred relic, St. Stephen's mummified right hand. Stained glass windows depict various saints, such as St. Andrew and St. Laszlo, the Hungarian king who led his country out of a period of civil turmoil. Blessed Gisela was the first queen of Hungary by marriage to St. Stephen and the sister of the Holy Roman Emperor Henry II. Regular organ concerts are held on Thursday evenings, performed by some of the country's best musicians. We leave the basilica and cycle through narrow streets to hand back our bikes. The Great Market Hall is the largest and oldest indoor market in Budapest. The entrance gate has a neo-Gothic touch and the roof is covered in colourful tiling. The market offers a huge variety of stalls on 3 floors. Most of the stalls on the ground floor offer fruit and vegetables, all beautifully displayed. The radishes look particularly tasty. Dolls in traditional costume can be found on the 2nd floor. The display area is cramped and we found the prices to be reasonable after some bargaining. Back on the pavement, we came across an ATM which could dispense cash in either local or euro currency. Souvenirs on show in the shop windows on the pedestrian walkway were completely different and of course very much more expensive. The expression on the faces of the dancing piglets was completely lifelike. Some of the displays were not for sale but acted as window dressing. It was time for lunch and as usual there were many restaurants to choose from. The Anchor Palace has been dormant since 2013 and overlooks one of the busiest intersections and transport junctions in Budapest. Many parks are to be found in the city, usually with a statue or memorial in the middle. If your time in Budapest is short, or you just want a simple way to get an overall image of the city, the hop-on, hop-off bus tour is absolutely ideal. Plug in your headphones and choose the applicable language socket. No less than 40 languages are catered for. From above, the contrasts between the new and the old can clearly be seen. Up close, the intricate carvings and the architecture can really be appreciated. Capturing reflections in buildings from the top deck of the bus is rewarding without the distracting telephone and electrical lines. The bus crosses the famous chain suspension bridge from Buda to Pest. At the time of its construction in 1849, the bridge was regarded as one of the engineering wonders of the modern world. Following the city map, we planned various hop-offs to explore the tourist attractions along the way. 2 larger-than-life statues of World War I soldiers stand on sandbags in front of the Great War Centenary exhibition at the Vakert Bazaar. Even the walls outside the bazaar display portraits of numerous heroes of the war, in which 661,000 were killed in battle during the First World War. Various other statues graced parks with colourful flower beds. Empress Elizabeth, the Austrian-born and wife of Emperor Franz Joseph, learnt to speak fluent Hungarian and was much loved by the people. The railway station was regarded as one of the most modern railway stations in Europe in 1884. We continue enjoying the views of statues adorning various buildings from the upper deck of the hop-on, hop-off bus. Some buildings even have intricate murals on the corners. Budapest's Great Synagogue was built in 1859 and is the largest Jewish house of worship outside New York City. Heroes Square is noted for its iconic statue complex. It features the original 7 chieftains of Hungary and other important national leaders, as well as the tomb of the unknown soldier. George Doia led a peasants' revolt against the Hungarian kingdom. He was eventually caught, tortured, and executed along with his followers. He is remembered as both a Christian martyr and a dangerous criminal. It is time to head back to our ship, and we look down on the hustle and bustle along the water's edge. Our captain has left the best part of the cruise for last, and we slowly leave our berthing spot and commence a stunning sunset cruise. No words can adequately describe the beauty of Budapest by night, as seen from the middle of the Danube, with Buda on the one side and Pest on the other. Some of the buildings take on an artistic form through the use of colour and light. Most of the famous landmarks look quite different once the sun has set and the effect of a type of stage lighting takes over. We end our cruise with a view of the Parliament building, which looks as if it is an artist's work on canvas.